First order of business, approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Motion by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Sokol. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Privilege of four. We'll open up the SUNY Adirondack. Dr. Duffy?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Just a couple updates about the college. We're nearing spring break, so everyone's excited, even though I would say spring is questionable at this point. But we did bring in a larger class this year for spring than we did last year, which was a good trend for us, considering that in the fall we were a little down compared to the year before, so we're making some progress, so we're pleased with that. We are in state budget advocacy season. I want to thank Chairman Conover for sending some letters of support to our elected officials. And today, in fact, when I leave here, we have a lunch with some of our state legislators, with our students, some of our members of the campus community, to talk about all the good work that we're doing in hopes that the state will support our funding request, which is to change the formula, as I think I've shared with this body before, to provide a bit more stability and predictability for the community colleges across the state. So we'll continue to lobby for that. We are in the process of putting our budget together for next year, and we had a great meeting with both Warren and Washington County a few weeks ago to just talk about where we are in the budget process and what our request will be of the counties, which will be the standard 2% increase that we've been fortunate enough to receive from each of the counties. If the state budget doesn't go the way that we're hoping, we're going to have another $300,000 loss to our bottom line, and we're already in a position of not being able to fill positions that we need. So, we'll continue to work on that, and we love your support and appreciate everything that you've done to date. I think Anne-Marie was here last month and shared that we have submitted all the paperwork to Empire State Development for the culinary project. Everything's completed, all the paperwork is in, and we shouldn't have an issue of that reimbursement that we will then pass along to you, of course. We've been told that to not expect it before May, so but everything that we needed to do is done on our end, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand you've hired or are about to hire a sustainability coordinator?
Yep, he just started last week.
Good.
Yeah, so his role we created a sustainability plan for the college about 3 years ago, and we've been chipping away at some of those actions. We really didn't have anyone to lead the effort, so we're happy to be able to create that position to be able to support our sustainability efforts, which, as you know, if you do them right, you can actually have some savings, and that, of course, then allows us to reinvest in other strategic initiatives. We're just this close to finishing our off-site solar array project, which will allow us to capture about 30% of our energy from renewable energy, which is great. And he'll be working on some other projects.
Any other questions? Thank you. At this time, I need to request an executive session for a labor attorney to talk about interest arbitration. Somebody might make a motion to go into executive session. Motion by Supervisor Sokol, second by Supervisor McDevitt. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. We'll go into a short executive session. Thank you.
All right.
Review of the report of the tracking. Are there any questions on the tracking report for the vacancies? Anybody? Okay. Next up will be Matt Schuett, Yeager and Flynn, to give us a little update on health insurance.
All right, thank you. Good morning. 45 minutes, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, so the purpose of me being here today is to really, if you recall, we have a working group meeting, or committee, that takes a much deeper dives into what's happening with the health plan and benefit management, how to control costs, and on and on. So this is to have a little bit of a download from that and how the plan is performing. You have an agenda on your table, but I'll just go over it kind of on a high level here. So first, plan performance. Those of you who were here in 17, you recall we spent a lot of time reviewing self-insured health plan, benefits of, pros and cons, and went through a lot of that. So we wrapped up in December, end of November actually. It was your first full year of self-insuring, and we're right on target. It's the plan, really the intention of it was, and we know we needed to cover our risk and make sure everything is handled appropriately. You didn't, in this case, like I said, it ran right to target. You didn't really add to reserve, or you didn't pull from reserve. Everything went exactly as it was set appropriately, and it's running efficiently at this point. So I know that was a big concern going in to self-insuring, of what type of risk would we have, and again, just to say we had a very good first year with it. As we had mentioned in previous meetings, you're going to have some peaks and valleys with self-insuring, some years where you're going to have some high claims, but we are prepared for that and reserved properly and set up correctly. Part two of this, just as far as continual management, what do we do from here? How do we control costs? Obviously, with your contracts, you have limited things that you can do with your plan designs. But we're going to point out one thing. You do have, those of you, maybe you are aware of it, maybe not, you might be more of after this, but telemedicine. You actually have your plans today have, your Blue Shield plan has something called telemedicine in it. And it actually is a way for the county to save some money, and it's a way for the employees to save some money. Does anybody have a sense for what telemedicine is? Anybody ever seen or heard of these things? Okay, so you're seeing a doctor through your device, through your phone, through your laptop, through anything that's camera enabled. You'll start to see more commercials for this. This has been around for a number of years, and it's becoming more prevalent. And I say you're seeing providers, you're seeing a provider for things like common stuff, pink eye, sinus infection, ear infection, basic stuff, okay? Where I had used it myself for the first time in December for my son, who had just come home from college and had strep throat, thought he had strep throat, and at that time he needed to be somewhere else for whatever reason, I forget, 24 hours later. And we, with that, if we had gone and tried to see a doctor at that point in time, it would have taken a tremendous amount of, quite a bit of time, and also it just would have taken a lot of time to get basically the same result. So we had picked up the phone and gone through and contacted the telemedicine provider that's part of the health plan, and that took actually about 15 minutes to do, and we didn't drive anywhere. It was very simple. Wrapped it up in a couple, like I said, 15 minutes, and it actually saved me a decent amount of money on doing that. So the benefit to your employees is that the first one's going to be time. They're going to save a significant amount of time when they use these things. The benefit to the county in the background is that cost of that claim is actually quite a bit lower than it is for a regular doctor visit. Okay, so you pay claims as a self-insured health plan. It's something to consider. We have for other employers set up incentives around that to entice utilization of these programs. Some things that we're going to be working more on with the working group to steer that type of utilization in that direction on a voluntary basis still, of course. Questions on that? I'm trying to keep it reasonably on track here, but I want to make sure if anybody has any questions.
Just a quick technical question. Telemedicine, how does that interface with your primary as far as referrals, HMOs, or something?
Yeah, you won't need any referral with it. When you say, as far as interface, what I think sometimes is do the results of that visit go back to your provider?
Right.
You can request that. It doesn't happen automatically, but upon request. But it's also, as I mentioned, it's going to be used for kind of low-level stuff, too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
How are we rolling this out to the employees so they know to use it? Because I think we've had this before. Have we not? Already had this available?
We do have it. We have a flyer that goes out hire, we have them on the table at open enrollment. I've been working with Lauren. Paper and videos, like how does this actually work? So we're going to be sending out emails once to everybody. And I fact checked Matt and went online and registered for it and downloaded the app. I'm just waiting. I'm not waiting for anybody to get sick at my house, but when somebody gets sick at my house, I'm going to test it myself, because I think that's how it's going to work. It's just going to be word of mouth once a few people start using it and tell people how easy it is. I think it'll catch on. It's just we haven't had, I think you said only a couple of people have used it so far.
Yep, a couple of people have used it voluntarily, and it is part of your health plan today. Ideas, like I say, we have, with other previous employers, set up some form of a reimbursement of the co-pays. So if they would pay $25 for this visit, you could potentially set up a reimbursement plan to make it so they're only paying $10 out of pocket, or zero, to incent utilization of these. Like I said, I've had good experience with it personally. Almost all the results of it that I've heard from anybody who's used it has always been positive if the plan's used intentionally.
When we have the videos and whatnot ready for employees, I planned on sending the email to all of our employees. I don't know if that means people will read it or people will put it in the trash, but we'll try.
And lastly, another area that we're pursuing, we're investigating, it's just getting rolled out. Blue Shield does have an ability to process this. It's reasonably new, but they have, you may be aware, many prescriptions, particularly the high-cost prescriptions out there, have manufacturers' coupons associated with them. And the coupons are directly there to help with the cost to the consumer. We have a way now through Blue Shield to take advantage of the coupons to offset the cost, the expensive cost of some of the prescription to the county in the background. When I say, you'll see you put a note on the agenda of two types of savings, one to the county, one to the employee. The coupon would actually be used to offset both parties. It would reduce the employee's copay from, say, $30 or $50, whatever they're paying, to zero. Okay, so they have a significant incentive to do it. It's part of the program. And so that's the employee side. And on the county side, again, the majority of that coupon would be used to offset some of the cost of these prescriptions. And we're talking prescriptions, we're not talking the ones that are $30 and $40. We're talking, there's a lot of them out there that are, plenty of them that are $500 a month and $1,000 and $2,500 and on and on. So there is a significant savings that's estimated on this. We're trying to, before we say it publicly, I want to make sure we can dial it in, but it's enough that it would be worth it, in my opinion. So that's what we're working on is another phase of what I'd call plan management, continual plan management, squeezing out dollars without affecting employees.
And Matt, it's my understanding that it might take 10 minutes for employees to enroll in this, and then it'll just be automatic when they get their prescriptions. They'll have the savings applied.
Yep. There's some basic onboarding that they have to do with Accredo, which is the specialty pharmacy in the background.
Yes, Peter, in terms of prescription cost containment, specifically as it relates to Medicare, if currently it is illegal for Medicare to directly negotiate with drug companies. If you can't directly negotiate prescription drugs with the drug companies, it would seem to me it would be almost impossible to lessen or curtail the cost of prescription drugs. So it's just, again, we have a law in place that says Medicare, you cannot negotiate with the drug companies. So until that fundamentally changes, I don't think we're going to go too far with the reduction in drug costs.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can bring back to the working group. Admittedly, that program for coupons is nibbling at the edges, right? It is a smaller amount, but we're taking advantage where we can, depending on your tolerance over time for changes. to the prescription plan, we certainly can. There are methods that we have with other employers that you can certainly get much more aggressive in how prescriptions are managed, what you're allowing, what you're not, things of that nature. That we can, take more chunk of the pie for sure.
Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, Matt, the thresholds for our private insurance, are you satisfied with where they are? What, where our insurance policies kick in to certain thresholds?
Oh, yes.
Are you satisfied with where we've set those, or?
So you're referring to the reinsurance, where reinsurance and stop loss comes into place. And yes, we set it conservatively in 2017 when we first started, and we evaluated it last year at the committee level of whether, bumping it up to higher levels, taking on a little bit more risk on the county side would be worth the dollar savings, and it was determined that and last fall it wasn't, but we're absolutely looking at that every year to make that determination, but you're in a very appropriate place right now.
Supervisor Weil?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Myself and a couple of other supervisors were at an event last night at Glens Falls Hospital. And you may have read in the press that the hospital is having some financial difficulties. The presentation centered, in my mind, around a number of different factors, but the financial aspects were that there was a lack, or I shouldn't say a lack, but a decrease in patients using commercial insurance. In effect, what it is there's more Medicare and Medicaid. They lose money on that. Being a institution that's important to this county and this area, I'm wondering if we have any way to incent our employees to use the services at Glens Falls Hospital. And secondly, one of the slides talked about the disruptors that are going on in this industry. Anthem, who I believe is a parent of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Not this. There's
Not
two.
this
We have
one.
two blues
Right.
in our backyard here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is, insurance companies are, in their way of trying to control costs, are disincentivizing people to use the hospitals. Now, it's a big picture of what's going on, but there are issues that are facing us in the future with the hospital, and I'm just curious if there is some way that we might be able to help the hospital by encouraging our employees to use the hospital resources to try and help with this financial issues that they have.
We tried to avoid the emergency room, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a point well taken. There are, you have some limits in your contract. So as far as incentivizing or having the data, really at this point, we can do some data mining on it. We have some limits with what the carrier will give us. But ultimately, one way to steer care is to set up a tiered network where you may have, if you could find a outpatient facility, let's just say, that has lower costs than the other and the care is equal, you can design your plan to have a lower copay for that, which just naturally steers people in that direction. Those are types of things that we can certainly investigate.
And if I might follow up, I don't feel comfortable limiting choice, but the hospital is a significant resource for us, not only for us as residents, but from our tourism industry also. And I think it'd be wise for all of us to dig in and find a little bit more about what's going on with the situation at the hospital. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Any other questions for Matt? Oh, appreciate you coming in
Sure.
today.
Thank you.
Did a good
Thank you,
job.
Matt.
Thank you. Okay, next item is all to do with a personnel officer. It's item C, D, and E. First is to amend the table of organizations salary schedule to create and fill a new position of civil service specialist, annual salary $43,500, and delete the position of principal personnel clerk, annual salary of $44,342. That's C. And then D is request to amend the table of organization salary schedule to create a new position of civil service assistant, a salary of $40,000, and delete the senior personnel clerk, annual salary of $36,977. And the third is request to amend the salary schedule to decrease the salary of clerk temp position from $5,000 to $2,819. Does anybody have any questions, Trish, on it? Or first, somebody want to make a motion? Motion by Edna, second by Supervisor Loeb. Do you have any questions for Trish? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering, I see the writing here, but how does this affect personnel in the office?
So
The
we
bodies?
have-
Civil service.
So in addition to civil service, we had a vacancy. We have 2 full-time positions in our budget, and we use the opportunity to update our titles and our descriptions. And the existing employee, in their 2 years, will be getting a promotion, and we're adjusting the salary on our temp line, and we have a candidate for our vacancy. So we just took the opportunity to update our jobs and control budget details.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Trish? It's neutral, right? It's cost neutral.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. C, D, and E. Okay, we're done. All right, next, referrals for Health, Human, and Social Services. Countryside, request to amend the table organization and create and fill a new position of Case Manager 14, base salary $40,954, and delete Caseworker Part-Time, grade 16, annual salary $21,900, or $695.
Move A, B, and C, Mr. Chairman. These
We
are
have a motion to
discussed in
move all 3 positions, A, B, and C. They've all been vetted through committee. Do we have a second by Supervisor McDevitt? Any questions on any of them? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 3A, B, and C are done.
We did have a late-breaking request from Social Services to allow them to fill the position of Senior Account Clerk number 5. They had a verbal resignation earlier this week, so it didn't make it in time for the Health Committee. They expect a written resignation today. It's a critical position, works with Julie Montero. She's a little short-staffed right now.
Okay, do we have a motion to fill Senior Account Clerk number 5? Motion by Supervisor Loeb, second by Supervisor Frazier. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On the veterans one, should we not, this is to create the position, I know there was discussion, should we not give her the opportunity to fill it too? Or this is one we're sharing with Washington County, correct?
Right.
Do we not need to do that yet?
We will need the agreement in place with Washington County, an intermunicipal agreement. We expect to do that next month. That was our thought on holding off to fill it until all of that is in place.
So you want to wait?
Yeah, so we're going to, next month, we'll accept the funding from the state, and we will amend the budget and authorize the MOU.
Okay.
But she did want the position created so that she could begin the
Okay, I just
process.
didn't want to hold it up for 30 days if we didn't have to. Okay. Number 4, referral Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Railroad. Request to amend the annual salary and decrease the salary of Environmental Education Administrator from $58,338 to $50,000 effective April 1st. And B is to request the table organization, amend the table organization salary schedule, create the new position of Assistant Naturalist Temp, annual salary $4,000 effective March 18th. These are all both for Up Yonda, I believe. Somebody want to make a motion, A and B? Motion by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4-0. Okay, number 5, I'm going to turn over to the County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request, if you recall, in a criminal justice meeting a month or 2 ago, the district attorney was asked to comment on his office's salaries. The situation in the DA's office is what's really driving this. We have, in terms of the surrounding counties, Saratoga County is starting ADAs at $88,000. Washington County is starting at $68,000. Essex County is starting at $67,000. By comparison, our starting salary right now in the district attorney's office is $52,260. We've already lost one ADA. We've had several other ADAs interviewing elsewhere, including public defender offices. The public defender salaries, especially in Washington County, because they're one of the original Hurrell Herring lawsuit counties, are very competitive. We have already, to operate the DA's office with only 7 ADAs, we already are running a very lean operation. and we're very, very concerned about the potential of losing additional attorneys who are experienced. That, in combination with the discussions that this board had last year at budget time regarding how we deal with salaries for non-represented employees, led me to take a look at perhaps setting up a grid, salary grid like we have for all of our unions for these attorneys. That grid that I came up with is in your packet. I included the document that says 2019 on the top. That's the CSEA grid that we're using right now. The column all the way over on the left is the position grade. That position grade is determined based upon qualifications and the difficulty of the job, essentially. The more professional qualifications you need, the more experience you need, and the severity of the workload, you're going to be down in the 20s, and the more simple jobs, they'll be in the 1 through 10 range. In addition to that, we reward employees staying with the county. So a person, let's say a grade 1, when they're first hired, would start at $26,727. At the end of their first year of service, their salary moves up to $27,305. If you follow along on that top line. That's how it works for CSEA. For our other unions, these increases happen automatically. So what I did for the attorneys is I took a look at if you look at the page that says 2019 attorney, where you have a salary table with 5 grades on it. The box all the way down to the bottom shows how that CSEA salary schedule works. So moving into the first year, all of those grades are getting just a dollar amount, $580 added to them. Moving into the second year, it's a 1.73% increase, and so on, until you get out to the 10th year. The 5th year, a 9.3% increase off of the 4th year salary. The 10th year, 6.5, and then all of the 15, 20, 25, 30, it's just a flat amount of $500. I overlaid that with, I came up with 5 grades for attorney positions based on the types of job duties that our attorneys here in the county have. I thought it would be best to get all attorneys on the same pay scale so that there's not an impression that there's a disparity in the way we handle one department over another. They're all attorneys. They've all been to law school. They ought to be considered on the same scale. We took a look at job duties. The line that I drew there between 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 5, I drew a line to indicate that 4 and 5 are really more for the supervisory positions in each office. For instance, Jason has a first assistant DA who would step up and be district attorney in the event that Jason left his office. That position would be a grade 5. There's a lot of responsibility in that position. The DSS supervising attorney, we set at a grade 4. The other 3 grades are, if you will, the worker bees, and the ones that have more difficult jobs, more job responsibilities, they're going to be 3s, and the junior attorneys that come on, they'll be 1s. From there, the assumptions in this table are that moving from the entry pay into the first year be a flat $2,000. Again, CSEA is getting a flat dollar amount, so we took a look at doing a flat amount for these. For the second, third, and fourth year, a 3%, a 2%, a 1.5%. The 5th year, 9, which is similar to the 9.3 for CSEA. In the 10th year through the 30th year, 5% when each of those increments is hit. Now, these would not be automatic. These salaries, this would simply say if you hit your 5th year and you're a grade 1, you're eligible for that $74,564. But it's going to be up to your department head whether or not you've earned it. So each year at budget time, we would propose to have the new salaries kick in for January 1st. I will work with the department heads, let them know what all other people are eligible for and what they're making, and then the department head will decide which figure is more appropriate. We thought that this was a more objective, scientific way to come up with these numbers rather than just have the department heads come in ask for a 5,000 increase or a 10,000 increase or the, you know, the way they typically do it, and then decide where to go from there. We want people to, if they say, why am I making this amount of money and the person next to me is making this, or the person in this department is making that, we'd like them to be able to look at something that's on paper that says your salary is this because this is your job grade, and your department head has determined that you've earned the, you know, reward that you get essentially for staying in county employment. So that is the logic behind this. What we would ask today, and this is the third page in the attachment, is if the board is willing, we would apply this effective April 1st to the district attorney's office, the county attorney's office, and the social services department. I've worked with each of the departments. All three of them have actually, in terms of whether, you may ask whether the concept is going to work out, that folks don't just automatically get these steps. All three departments have already made some concessions there, and in certain cases reduced salaries from what they could be to what they should be. The department heads have all worked very closely with me on determining the appropriate position grades for these titles, as well as the appropriate salaries, which all track to the, you know, year increments. I've given you what the current salary of the position is and what the revised salary would be, and in the shaded column all the way over to the right indicates the difference. So as you can see, the vacant 7th assistant DA would go from $52,000 to $65,000. That's still lower than all of the surrounding counties, but it's a start. And the idea is to phase this in over a couple of years. Don't just do it all right away. The county attorney's office, those two positions are fairly on target where they are now. And in DSS, we're actually able to have a little bit of savings. We had the part-time assistant attorney leave service a couple of weeks ago, and when we post that position, we'll have it at a reduced salary from what's in the DSS budget. So if it's the will of this committee and the finance committee and the board to move forward with this, we would ask that this grid be adopted as laid out. The budget officer has spent a lot of time going through this with me, as has the personnel chair, and both are in agreement that these amounts are fair. And we would also ask that the salary schedule for these specific positions be changed to the figure in the revised scale.
Okay, I'll open up for questions for Ryan. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, maybe just more an observation. I think it's very important that we're competitive, that we compare ourselves to Saratoga and Washington County, that we're indeed competitive, and secondly, uniformity within our own house, okay, in terms of attorneys in different departments, that there is a reasonable degree of consistency and uniformity where we don't have huge gaps between an attorney in Mary's office or an attorney in Mr. Carazone's office. So thank you for the amount of work you guys have put together on this.
So thank you for the consideration.
Supervisor Hyde.
I support this, and I would like to see us work at becoming more competitive. I think it's very important.
Supervisor Bramer.
I'm really glad to see the uniformity. I think that's a great idea, and I was concerned about the raises situation, but I'm glad to hear that it would be still up to the department head to do some sort of performance evaluation. I'm going to harp on that. I have a question about what happens if Jason hires somebody as a second assistant DA and they have 10 years experience, but this is their first year in. Do they get is there any way to factor that in? They've already been a DA for 10 years in another county.
Our practice with CSEA is when you start at the bottom. You know, that also goes for people that have had a break in county service. If they go away for a year and come back, they start over. If the board wanted to do it a different way, I would be open to that, but I would want to bring it to the board for approval to do sort of a salary exception where somebody starts a little higher on the scale.
We do have for nurses and patrol officers where we give them up to a certain level. Patrol officers 3 years, nurses
3 years.
5 for previous experience outside the county, and it has to be confirmed and documented experience. So we do have that exception.
Yeah, I do think if a department head feels strongly that we have a good person that wants to work here that needs to make a certain amount of money, that we should be able to consider that, but I would want to bring it to this board for approval.
Supervisor Loeb, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ryan, of course, this agenda came out several days ago, and we had a chance to discuss it and discuss these numbers. Back when we had the budget negotiations, actually budget discussions, would have been called negotiations, there was a lot of angst about giving raises, and a lot of discussion. And when this was first proposed a month ago, there was a concern from our budget officer that we have a budget, the ink is barely dry, and we're already throwing these raises out. I can appreciate when we have a budget discussions, I've heard this statement made many times, let's discuss it next year. Perhaps that's where we are. Let's discuss it next year. We're in next year now, we're discussing it, and we're making a decision. But I think the supervisors as a board needs to come to an understanding of how we approach these raises so that a department can't say, well, I'm just going to throw it out there at budget time, and then I'll come back in February and they're just going to give it to me.
I think this is the exception rather than the rule. We have a situation in the DA's office that really has just developed in the first quarter of this year that we're trying to respond to. My overall concern, I don't want to add to the budget, but the more important concern is crime victims in this county getting the services that they deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
No, I just think it's a wonderful idea, and I really think we should move forward with it.
Supervisor Brown?
I'd like to see us do something similar for the department heads too.
I think we're going to continue working on it.
I'll work on that, and if the board is willing to go along with this concept, I'll apply the same concept to all the other non-reps, and we'll bring it with the idea that it would be for 2020, and it'll be part of the budget process.
Yeah, next year.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, I believe that this was kind of brought up for last year. Jason did give us a heads up, I think, before, so it didn't really just start in January. I remember from past meetings that this was brought up, and I'm moving forward. I think it's great, and the way you presented it is basically a soft start and coming in and bringing it up. I believe that's going to show the incentive that we want to move, and it's not hitting us too bad. And the other thing too is some of the requirements for these people to live in our county. We also have to remember that money is going to be coming back into the county with the purchases of homes and clothes and food and entertainment. So.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer?
I don't want to open up a can of worms, but just to note that the Public Defender's Office is not on here, and I assume that's because they're in a whole different category.
There's a couple of reasons for that, and Erin's here from the Public Defender's Office. She and I, as well as Marcy, worked very closely on this as well. All of the public defender attorneys got $5,000, if you recall, as part of the 2019 budget process. It was overdue. We thought it was fair. We have state funding to pay for it. And in order to, the idea would be for the Public Defender's Office to utilize as much of that state funding as possible, because they really are, if you consider that not giving raises results in people leaving and having to retrain attorneys, that's the status quo. By giving the raises, that's a quality enhancement, and that's what the state is trying to do with the quality disbursements as well as the Harrell Herring money. So it is our plan to not formally have the public defenders on this, but to do good by them and to work every year with Marcy to keep them up in a way that the state can go along with and get maximize that reimbursement. That's why the public defender is not on for today.
Can I get a motion to move this forward? Motion by Supervisor Frazier, a second by Supervisor Loeb. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no pending items. Item 6, vacancy is approved. We've already been through these. Are there any questions on those? And we're going to add on to one social services. Any other questions for the Personnel Committee? Motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Loeb, second by Supervisor Kramer to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.